Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. Happy Monday, everyone. I had the best weekend ever, and I hope that you did too. In fact, I'm still celebrating with my disco ball eyes. But enough about that. I have a wonderful guest today, Dr. Linda, and she, oh my goodness, I can't wait for this conversation because she loves to talk about the things I love to talk about. So let me bring her on. Hello, how are you today?
Hi, Julianne. I'm doing amazing. How are you doing?
So good. I've been looking forward to this, and especially even just like in the last couple minutes, I can't wait to hear more from you. So I would love if you would share just a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Oh gosh, where do I start? I always kind of go back to anybody remembers Jacqueline. I don't know if you remember Jacqueline. If you're
Of course.
So my journey kind of goes back to the days when he had the gyms, and you're in Southern California. So I grew up in Southern California, going to the gym right next to South Coast Plaza. You know, a lot of people know where South Coast Plaza is, right? And so that's kind of where my journey started when I was younger. It's just, I fell in love with fitness and weight training, and I saw how that totally changed my body. Because when I was in middle school, I was the nerd because I enjoyed books. I enjoyed being a straight A student, and I was a little bit of chunky in middle school, and that's like the worst, right? Because you get picked on. And I started going to the gym with my mom. I started running, and just my body just changed so much. And I fell in love with fitness. And growing up, we also, we didn't use any type of medication or drugs, or we didn't look to pills to fix ourselves. It was, okay, let's make some tea. Mom would go get some herbs and, mix up a concoction and say, drink this. So we weren't allowed to say, we can't go to school because our stomach hurts. That's an excuse so many people use. So everything really kind of goes back to, when I was a teenager, and I knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. And when I was in school, I'm like, I want to be whatever the toughest, what the toughest, more challenging profession would be. And I thought, brain surgeon, that's like the toughest one. But I don't like needles. I hate blood. So that wasn't going to be an option for me. And growing up under chiropractic care, I ended up going to chiropractic college because it was like a marriage of the physical body, but also nutrition and spiritually and mentally. And I know that's lining up with a lot of what, your route and how you work with people. So that's kind of just all in a nutshell. And so today I'm still in practice and actively in practice, functional medicine. I'm a certified functional medicine practitioner. So I use food as a medicine, which I love. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, you said one of my favorite things, use food as medicine. So I would love for you to expand a little bit more on that concept, because a lot of people think that when they're not feeling well, just take a pill. And I know that for me, I would rather prevent myself from feeling a certain way or correct my, whatever's going wrong with me, trying doing that through food. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your thoughts, I would love that.
Absolutely. And you're right. Typically, most people will look for a drug of some sort, or even someone who will say, well, what vitamin can I take? And it's like, well, let's go back and look at what are you eating? Because even if a person feels sick, 3 days later after eating something bad, they sometimes don't put that together.
Yeah.
They can't connect the dots. And also, food is medicine. I'm talking about wholesome food, one ingredient foods, like chicken, fish, a lot of greens, berries. And everybody has to find out what works for them. I always say, eat food that your body likes, not necessarily what you like. I could eat pizza all day, but I would feel horrible the next day. So you have to learn to choose foods that your body likes. And sometimes you have to realize that what your body enjoyed years ago, maybe it doesn't enjoy it anymore at this moment. Exactly. I'll give you an example. I wrote a book on juicing years ago, and I loved juicing. It was a way for me to just kind of detox, reset. I mean, I even did like a 40-day juice fast. crazy, right? So years later, I tried that again, and I felt horrible. I was bloated. I was just like, I'm just drinking juice. How is this? And I had prepared all this juice because I did it ahead of time, and I was feeling horrible. So obviously, that wasn't healthy for my body at that time. So your body's environment, it's like a chemistry lab. It changes. So you have to learn to put the proper food for what your chemistry lab needs.
You know, that's a really good way to look at it. And that's okay. So I've done a juice cleanse for 28 days, but not 40. But that's beside the point. What I was going to say, though, was, you know, a lot of times when you go from eating, say, junk food, and then you do a cleanse, or you try and you just cold turkey and change, there's going to be some uncomfortability. How can you tell the difference between like working that stuff out of your system versus this isn't good for me?
Yes. Well, most of the time I tell people you don't want to start on a cleanse if you're the traditional standard American diet. I said, for you, a cleanse may just be, let's take sugar out, and not necessarily, let's just do all veggies and fruit and do a juice cleanse. We say, first of all, just remove the sugar, okay? Drink more water. Those are two simple things people can do. I'm like, okay, the following week, let's start removing the dairy. The following week, let's start removing the gluten, because slowly people will feel so much better if maybe they just start with one type. Maybe it's the sugar. They need to just start with and you probably noticed, I'm working with a lot of people, that the sugar sometimes is the hardest. I mean, people have withdrawals and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm irritable. And like, don't worry about it. You know, there's ways that we can work around that. You can just drink more water, or we can start adding some healthy fats in the body so that you're not craving it, and that we also light up your brain. So there's different modalities that you can use. And I mean, I love using food as medicine because it could be a drug for some people, but it can also be medicine for others.
You know, you're talking about sugar in particular, which is one of my nemesis. I've had addiction issues in the past, and it's ranged from anywhere from alcohol to TV. But I would say the hardest one for me to give up was sugar by far, because it's in so many things, even things like that you wouldn't even think about, like maybe ketchup or salad dressing or things like that. So for somebody who's, you know, trying to get rid of that sugar in their life, would you recommend something like a full pantry cleanse, like throwing everything out, or what would you suggest?
So I work with a lot of patients actually using the ketogenic diet. Okay. That works amazing for, they kind of shift their, I always say, their fuel source from sugar to fat. But the way we do it in the practice is we remove dairy. So it's almost more paleo, where it's high fat. We remove the sugar. There's other, they can use, like I would say, okay, add coconut butter. I don't know if you've tasted coconut butter. That is so sweet. It's like too sweet. After a tablespoon, you're like, I can't have it anymore. It's just way too sweet. So it's really about changing the fuel source. The body has been accustomed to run on sugar and glucose. And if you just start switching that fuel source and you start adding in more protein, you really don't have those withdrawals, or those cravings almost go away within a couple days. So I just say, let's add more fat into the diet, and it works beautifully. So maybe we can start adding a little bit more fat, like even like macadamia nuts. I like butter, I like ghee, and I like putting some salt on it. So those are some of the ways that we have a lot of our patients transition, and it's almost effortless for them.
Who doesn't love effortless? It almost seems too good to be true. So my question, though, is I've known a lot of people who have done keto, and their version of keto is like ranch chicken, you know, sour cream. And I know you mentioned the no dairy, but what are some, I mean, it's kind of like saying, I could call myself a vegetarian or vegan and eat Twinkies, and that's, I wouldn't be healthy. But I'm assuming that what you're referring to isn't like these super unhealthy types of fats, but like you said before, the coconut butter, for example. Is that correct? Or
yes, it's a cleaner. So it's really a lot of healthy fats. Like we use a lot of avocado oil, olive oil, some coconut oil, some nuts and seeds that are sprouted because it's easier on the digestive tract, and high quality protein from wild caught fish to chicken that's about the hormones. Some people, eggs can be inflammatory. Eggs almost are like the perfect food, but not for everybody. Once again, you have to learn to eat food that your body likes, not necessarily what you like. I mean, I love eggs, but there was a time in my life where I couldn't eat eggs because every time I would eat eggs, I would crave sugar and I'd be tired. And so those are some ways that they'll start to realize and make that connection. After I eat avocados, example, they feel a particular way. And I'm like, well, maybe your body doesn't like avocados at this time. Maybe we need to fix some gut issues that are going on. So you always have to find out, what does your body do well with? And just because it did well with it years ago doesn't always mean it's going to continue to do well now. You've got to change. So, and of course, some of the fruits, the lower glycemic fruits, lots of berries. I'm a big, I love berries, so, and tons of water. Make sure lots of water. I have them use the pink salt, the real salt, and salt their water, because when they do transition from, a high carb, lower carb eating template, they will get spasms or cramps, or they feel horrible. They get that keto flu. So this is one of the ways to prevent from going in that direction as well.
That's fascinating. Besides me, I've never heard anybody else recommend putting the salt in the water. I mean, not that it's a brand new concept or anything, but nobody else seems to talk about that. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's something too about like how it gets into the cells easier somehow. And so it actually helps hydrate. And I always compare it to like, California's drought, when it rains really hard and it just sloughs off, and then if you add salt, then it actually goes in a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. And the other thing is, just because you're talking about like cravings, I use glutamine a lot. If you take 5 grams of glutamine, which is almost like a tablespoon, and you just sprinkle it on your tongue, I mean, the sugar cravings almost go away instantly.
Oh, wow.
So you were just asking about, well, what if a person's trying to get off sugar? The other hack is a little bit of apple cider vinegar and lemon juice, and I put sea salt in there, and with some water, like a couple tablespoons of each, and you drink it, and that will just really curb, because it helps balance those, so your glucose levels aren't spiking. Even when patients are like they say, my blood sugar is high in the morning, my fasting glucose levels. I'm like, okay, let's try the ACV trick, the apple cider vinegar trick, and the lemon juice, and drink some, like an hour or two before you go to bed, and see what happens. And almost every single time, their fasting glucose levels in the morning are a lot lower than not doing it.
Wow, that's actually really cool. Thank you. I thought I was pretty knowledgeable about a lot of things, but you've actually taught me a couple of things already, and I love that. I love having people who know more than me. It's not that hard, but I'm just saying. So back to, if you wouldn't mind if we backtrack just a little bit about food being medicine. What do you think about things like, are there certain foods that people should eat for certain things, or is it just more like whole food, plant, not necessarily plant-based, but like just good quality whole foods?
Yeah, I'm a really big believer in the grass-fed movement. I know some doctors aren't, but I'm a true believer. It's like, all right, if you see 2 animals being raised a different way, and just like the meat's going to taste different.
Yep.
I mean, it just is. And a farm raised fish just that's kind of an oxymoron to a wild caught fish, right? I mean, it's different. And I believe that food is medicine. You want to get it in its purest source. Can we get it in its purest source? Not nowadays, but you can at least try to choose farmers, try to choose where you purchase it, that they're doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
You know, and some is just so blatantly obvious that, okay, these are all raised in a confined area and they weren't treated well. And so, I mean, there's just a big difference. It's just like when you cook food, right? If you're in a bad mood and you cook food, you could cook your favorite dish and it tastes horrible. Exactly. And your friend or your spouse or partner will say, that tastes different today, you know, than other days you cook, right? And it's just like, man, this is amazing. And you're like, yeah, you had the music going on, something good happened that day, and you were just rocking it. And that it's just like all that energy you just exude in the food. And I think that's really important too. You know, it's just like looking at food as medicine, but also how it's prepared and who it's prepared by.
You know, that is so beautiful. I am a firm believer in two things. One, you are what you eat, and you are what you eat eats. That's one thing. Yeah. I love that saying. And then it does matter the energy that's behind the food. Like, for example, people that shoot deer, you never want it to be scared because it toughens the meat. And that's just how it is. I didn't make that. I'm not a deer eater, but I dated hunters before, and it's just because the meat literally tastes different because of the mood the deer was in when it was killed. So it seems to me like if a cow was raised in a better environment and ate better food as well, then it would taste better automatically just because of the quality of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's all hormonal too, and we can change our mood just with thought alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm such a big believer in that as well. Food also has a vibrational frequency. I mean, everything has a vibrational frequency. Your mood, when you're in a good mood, you're like vibing up here. Yep. And when you're not in a great mood, people walk in and they're like, Julianne, what's going on? And you're trying to play it off, say nothing. They're like, no, I know you, something's going on. And our food is the same way. Our food has a certain vibrational energy, the way it was raised, where it came from. It's the same thing.
No, I love that. You're totally speaking my language. There's some people that might not understand that. And I just want to say it's even in our language, like I'm feeling high as a kite or I'm down in the dumps. We literally talk about like levels of vibration all the time without even realizing that that's what we're talking about. So I love that you mentioned that because a lot of people don't get to that. I mean, and everything is energy, absolutely everything. So it makes sense that you'd want to eat something that is a higher vibration.
Yes.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Something else that we're getting a little close to commercial, but I want to touch on this before we go to commercial break. And that is inflammation, because, I know sugar is an inflammator. I don't even think I said that right, but you understand where I'm going with this. What are some things that can be caused from inflammation?
Well, definitely diet, like you mentioned, inflammation, a lot is diet, stress creates an inflammatory response as well, because a lot of people don't realize when your cortisol levels go up, the cousin insulin goes up as well. So you can create insulin resistance with that in it. And so inflammation, I mean, you look at arthritis, you look at heart disease, you look at cancer, diabetes, those are all inflammatory induced conditions, and they're all caused by lifestyle. So if they're caused by lifestyle, they can be fixed by lifestyle. Wow. what a concept, right?
Exactly. I love that you touched on arthritis in particular, because I didn't even know for the longest time that you can actually affect arthritis with how you eat. So what are some good anti-inflammatory foods for that?
Fish is probably one of the best. We say you're high anything with the high omega-3s. I superdose patients with omega-3s, also vitamin D, mostly omega-3s with the EPA and the DHA combo, and as high as like 3 grams a day. and also turmeric. And when they do that, their pain levels like decrease almost instantly. They feel it. I said, you only have to do it maybe for a week, like super dose. And then after that, I said, you can just tame it down. Just be mindful of what you're eating, what you're putting in your mouth, and also what you're putting in your mind. That's a big one. Because they think that just because you're getting older that, oh, you're going to get all these aches and pains. And I'm not a believer of that. Not at all.
Me either. Yes. I mean, I understand that things change as you get older, but you don't have to live in pain. And
exactly.
I love that. So this just came into my head, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I know I have my opinion, and it's very strong, but when people are trying to change, situations in their life, like maybe their arthritis or even their weight, it's kind of in the Western culture to say, go see your doctor. And I'm talking about medical MD, go see, a doctor. Do you think that a medical doctor is the best resource for something like that, for nutrition?
Absolutely not. Unless they've been trained. That's what I love about, health coaches. I mean, they know of so much more than the traditional medical doctor, unless they've been trained in integrative medicine, unless they've taken, years and years of nutrition. But a lot of them don't even know how the body works. And if you look at them, I'm like, would you take advice from a doctor who doesn't even look healthy, him or herself? And I've seen that so many times where people go to these fast weight loss clinics and they put them on 500 calories. And I'm like, well, look at the doctor. And is that sustainable? So look at them as well. And a lot of doctors are just as sick or sicker than their patients. They can disguise it a lot better with drugs.
No, that's a really good point. And, it makes me think about all the times that you see doctors outside smoking their cigarettes before they go back in. It's just, you're supposed to be the example. So what type of patients do you typically see? Like, who comes to see you?
I have a lot of patients that have been struggling with their health and just cannot find what's going on, what's wrong with them. I tell them that they're mostly females, but I tell you, I love male patients because you tell them what to do and they do it. The females are sometimes the hardest to work with because the hormones are shifting. They have kids, they have responsibility, and sometimes they're the toughest. But I love working with women because I love to see them transform to become a different person. And I really believe that when the person that comes to me, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they just want to know what's wrong with them and how to fix it.
Yeah, no, I love that because, it's funny that you would say that because women life gets in the way. There's a lot of different responsibilities. And I find that a lot of women tend to put themselves not first on the list of priorities.
Yeah.
So I love that. But, I think a lot of people get stuck in the idea because, and I talk about this a lot, but in our culture here, we're taught to trust the white coat. And then there's people such as yourself who have the kind of knowledge that like the doctor that you go see in the hospital doesn't have. Like, you actually are able to help people change their lives in a very functional way. And I just love that because it's not even just about, this is more like a comment, but I feel like other types of doctors just fix symptoms, and you as a doctor fix, help people heal is a better way to put it. So do people come and see you even if, like more for maintenance, or is it just kind of like, okay, I've got this issue and, I need help with it, for example? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, most people don't come to me until they're in pain or they're sick. That's just how it is. People are not, until I start to educate them, they're like, okay, I think I need to run labs now. I think it's time to follow up. I'm like, absolutely. But most people, I have this quote that most people aren't willing to change until the pain of feeling, as much as you're hurting, is worse than the pain of changing. Because people don't want to change because they're too comfortable feeling miserable. But when that misery is just something they just can't handle anymore, they're like, you know what? Well, maybe I do need to change. Because most people don't want to change because they're afraid they might fail. But newsflash, we all fail. You know, there's a lot of things that don't work in our life, but that doesn't mean that we give up. You know, imagine if we stopped trying to learn how to walk when we were infants. Nobody told us that, oh, stay down. Gosh, you've already fallen 100 times. Give it up.
Yeah, exactly. You're a failure. Why are you even trying? I'm with you on that one. Well, we do have to go to commercial break, so we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you, Dr. Linda.
You're welcome.
Isn't she amazing? Oh my goodness. I can't wait until we come back from commercial break, but we do have to go for now. But before we go, I want to say hello to everyone who is watching us live. You are appreciated, very much so. And as I mentioned, we will be right back after these commercials.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And today's guest is Dr. Linda. Let's bring her back. Hello. Welcome back. So glad to have you back. Now, we barely touch on, you have a wealth of knowledge, but I really want people to have a chance to actually reach out to you after as well and just see what you're about. And so this is your website. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what they can find there, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I have several free ebooks there on brain health, on hormone, weight loss, keto, that's so much there, even on immune health, and they're all free. Definitely all free there. And we have some videos in there, a section just on videos. You can connect with us, YouTube. I have lots of videos from thyroid health, adrenal health, hormones, mindset, which I know that, that's something that resonates with you. I'm such a huge believer in mindset as well. And movement, exercise, I believe is super important as well. And they can connect with me on Instagram as well. I like to do Instagram lives, just do a series while we're educating people. Right now we're going through a thyroid series because there's so many thyroid issues. And I think those are some of the best places for people to connect with us.
I love that. So you mentioned that that you touch on movement on your website, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about some resistance training and the importance of that, because I know that that's something you know quite a bit about.
Yes, and resistance training, a lot of women seem to shy away from that. If you go to the gym and work out, most of the cardio machines are filled with women, and they'll go and they'll spend an hour on cardio, and they hardly ever do any weight training. And so I always like to use the example. It's like you could stay the same weight for 10 years, and if you're just doing cardio, you're still going to be skinny fat. You can actually gain fat mass, even though your mass, your weight is the same. Because as you get older, you become anabolic resistant, meaning it's harder to keep muscle on. And most people will focus on weight loss instead of muscle preservation or muscle mass. And so the only way that you're going to be able to do that is you have to incorporate resistance training. And you've got to go beyond just the bands. If you're just starting out and you're sedentary, I'm like, you've got to get in there and you've got to push weight and you've got to push and push and push a little bit more, because, the muscles the fibers they're going to tear. But with rest, they're going to recuperate, and they're just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's just like you're building more and more. So, resistance training is vital. And especially as women get older and they go through that change of life, menopause, to prevent osteoporosis. And also as even people are in their 70s and 80s, most of them don't die from a disease. Some of them die from the consequences of like a hip fracture, because they have no muscle mass to even, there's no flexibility, there's no muscle mass. They're just very, they just look very emaciated. And so I believe resistance training it's a must. I pretty much 5 days a week, I'm in there pushing weight, and I'm pushing a little heavier and a little bit heavier. And if it's too easy, it's like I'm not doing my job.
Exactly. No, I think that's a really good point though, too, about like the women on the exercise machines, the cardio, I should say. And, the thing that as a trainer that I always run into is I don't want to be like super muscly. And my response is always, you don't have the same hormones as a man. It's not physically possible for you to look like a man.
Exactly. And sometimes they'll look at some of these women, but these are some women that is what maybe they do for a living. They compete in fitness competitions, and that's hard work.
That is hard work.
Hours and hours and hours of exercise in a really clean diet, and they have to get their macros dialed in with, high protein recovery. And it's like, honey, you're not gonna, I've been working out since, I was 13. So it's been over 40 years since I've been working with weights, and I don't look anything like half a guy, and I just believe that women need to kind of not get so caught up in that, or, I don't want to gain muscle. I'm like, no, you want to gain muscle, because when you gain muscle, you lose fat.
Exactly. And that ultimately is, if that's what their goal is anyway, then why not?
Exactly. And they want to change their body composition. And remember, muscle is also an endocrine organ. So it does have a lot of benefits, just not for aesthetics, but for movement, but for immunity as well. And the higher the muscle mass a woman has, if someone in her same age, let's say a 60-year-old woman, if you have one with 30% body fat and you have one with 25% body fat. The one with the 25% body fat, I bet she's going to have a healthier, has healthier outcomes in her overall life compared to the one in the 30-some% body fat.
Well, also it helps with balance. I mean, that people don't even think about things like balance, but these are important things. I've got a client that's in her 70s, and now she can put those thick bands. She can put it around her legs, one leg at a time, and all the way up. I can't even do that half the time without falling over, and she can. I'm like, wow. And that's all
awesome.
This core strength and back strength and all those exercises that we do use weights for those as well. So not all of them, but core strength is so important. I just love that you talk about the importance of resistance training in particular, because people, like you said, they just don't understand how much of a difference it can make for them. And doesn't it help with sleep too?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Doesn't it help with sleep too? Quality of sleep, working out?
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing too with the resistance training, and you probably like to combine that with like interval training. So if the person wants to go, I even challenge them. I'm like, instead of for 30 days of you just going to the gym and doing cardio, why don't you switch it up and do maybe 30 minutes cardio, 30 minutes weight training, and see what happens. Even brain health, in the interval training where it's fast, slow, so they're not going the entire, half hour or hour, whatever they spend. It's at a different rate because they're challenging, their heart rate's going up and down. So you've got to continuously challenge the body. Otherwise, it's just going to expect it, and it's just going to go on autopilot. And you don't ever want to do that when you're working out. Even with food, I says you want to change that around with food and have more of a diverse microbiome as a result of that.
No, that's a beautiful statement too, because it's like we think like our heart's a muscle even. So we want to keep these things. I mean, it's amazing what our body does for us without us having to do anything. The least we can do is do our part to move it.
Exactly. And our body was created to move. We weren't designed to sit all day. We were designed to move. Our ancestors, they were moving throughout the day. They were picking up things. They were pushing things. They were looking for their next meal. So they were moving and they were moving a lot. And nowadays, one thing that I try to incorporate in the practice and tell patients is shoot for 10,000 steps a day.
Yes.
And I would tell them just track for like a week, see how much you're moving. And some of them are only moving maybe 2,000. They're only taking 2,000 steps. I'm like, oh my goodness, But also not to just get all your steps out in the beginning of the day, but to be moving throughout the entire day. I think that's really a good start for anyone that maybe isn't moving as much, even if they don't get to 10,000, have that as a goal. Let's say maybe I want to do 5,000 this week, and next week I'll do 6,000, but at least have a goal and try to have something that's measurable. Just like you and I were talking earlier about weight training and weight loss. It doesn't always matter what the scale says. Even if you have a scale, you want to make sure that you're looking at body mass and body fat, because you can stay the same, but your body mass can go up and your body fat goes down, and then you shrink. But you're like, but I'm not losing weight. But you just dropped like 2 dress sizes. You look better.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing too, is this is so funny. I used to work in addiction recovery, and I decided that was no longer for me. So I thought I was going to do something similar and become a deputy sheriff. And so I had to get in shape for that. And I've always been small. But I went to the gym and they did the body fat percentage, and I was at 30% body fat. And talk about thin on the outside, fat on the inside. I was horrified. So, I was able to change everything fairly quickly. That scared me. But, part of that was because of the weight training. It really made a huge difference. I mean, I've been trying to lose weight for a long time, but as soon as I added in that weight training, it just changed my entire dynamic. It was pretty amazing. I just thought I'd share that because
That's awesome. Wow. That was high. So you were like in the 30s, which would be considered like obese, right? If you look at some of them.
And at my biggest size, I was a 6. So, I mean, I was never huge. Yeah.
That's not big. Some women would love to be a 6. That's their goal weight, or their goal size.
Exactly. And I was obese. So, I mean, you just never know. But, and that's the thing too, like with the steps that I wanted to bring it back to that was that a lot of people think that they're moving a lot more than they actually are. And so I love that you said, just track it and see, because I think you'll be surprised. Either you're moving way more than you thought you were or a lot less.
And it's usually a lot less. For most people, it's a lot less.
Exactly. So something else that I would love for you to talk about a little bit is, and I think that this is so important, that especially for women, but optimal thyroid health. Why is that? I mean, how do you even know if your thyroid is off?
Oh my gosh. Well, I always talk about the thyroid kind of being like the CEO of the body, because every single cell in your body has a thyroid receptor site. It has like a little, it's got like a landing station. It's got a dock site. And so that the thyroid hormone, particularly the T3, which is the active hormone, when it lands in there, it's like turning on that cell so it can do what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. So if you want your metabolic rate to rev higher, you better make sure that your thyroid hormones are in balance. Typically, I see this in so many women, especially, and more women have thyroid issues because of our hormonal changes. And the other thing that you said is we take care of everyone else first and we put ourselves last. Mm-hmm. And so by the time these women come to my office, they've been having signs and symptoms for years, and they come to me and they're like, I went to my doctor, they tell me everything's fine, they tell me I'm healthy, but then they're telling me, but I'm tired, I'm losing my hair, I have this belly fat, I have no energy, my sleep is off, all these symptoms. And I was like, something's not right there. And the biggest thing is, and they tell me they're constipated. So everything's moving slow in their body. Mm-hmm. And usually they're only run a couple tests for thyroid, which is TSH and free T4. And then they're like, you know what, your thyroid's great. But they don't really check the other hormones like free T3 and antibodies, because I see so much Hashimoto's in the practice, which is an autoimmune condition, but it's not a thyroid issue. It's an immune issue. Yes, it's attacking the thyroid, and as it's attacking the thyroid now is making less on the thyroid hormone. So then everything else is going to start revving slower and slower and slower. And so it doesn't matter how much you work out, you're going to be struggling with weight loss, because weight loss or fat loss is dependent on hormones, not necessarily calories, but the type of calories, but also hormones. And so it's so overlooked in our country because of the inadequate testing. And so I'm like, we got to check your thyroid, and especially when they're telling me I'm just cold all the time and I'm exhausted and I'm having digestive issues and I'm losing my hair. But that's usually what brings women in, is the hair loss, because they're just losing clumps of it.
Yeah, that would be disturbing. I mean, men don't like it either, but as a woman, that's kind of one of our things. Yeah. And then also, I don't know if this is true or not, so I'm asking, isn't there also, especially with men and testosterone, where if it falls within a certain range, it's considered okay and normal, even if it's not actually for that person, like, because it's just the standard test. It's not actually anything else besides that. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah. So like, for instance, like for men and testosterone levels, they have a wide range, and as long as they fall in that range. And it's like, no, you want them to be in the upper range of testosterone so that they can feel amazing and function at optimal capacity. And it's the same thing with thyroid hormones. So when women, we want to look at especially the T3, free T3, it's just like, we want to make sure that you're at that upper 30% range, that your thyroid is just working robustly, just like a man who, you want him in the optimal, like more like the 800 ranges when it comes to testosterone. And they have to, and one of the things that's not checked a lot is doctors will mostly run tests on hormones that are bound, not free. So you want to look at like free testosterone or free thyroid, free T3, because free means that's floating around and that's what's available. So you can have a lot of the hormones there, but it doesn't mean that it's being used up in the system. And even one thing I see a lot is actually hormone resistance. And hormone resistance is where, and this can happen with any hormone, just like insulin resistance. We hear a lot about that with diabetics, right? But you can have thyroid resistance, you can have testosterone resistance, you can have estrogen resistance. And basically what that means is the docking site or the landing area where the hormone's supposed to go, it does not go there because there's toxins there, and it never can land or bind in there. And we see that a lot also, but doctors just don't put that together because they don't have time in a 3 to 5 minute office visit. They just can't put that all together. And that's the beauty of, what you do and I do with functional medicine. It's just like, we look at what's the cause behind the cause. You have to be a detective and ask a lot of questions. And if you know they've been tested by all these doctors, all these tests have been run, and they're just, they can't figure it out, you've got to take it an extra step. And it's like, maybe they have some sort of parasitic infections. Maybe they have metal toxicities. Maybe there's a mold issue. Maybe their sleep is off, maybe because they're on their computer like 12 hours all day, and then right before they go to bed. So there's so many connections and so much to look at.
So when checking the thyroid, is that something that is like taken with blood and somebody needs to come in for, or is that something that, like, because I'm talking to you, so let's say somebody wants to work with you in particular and they happen to live somewhere else in the world, maybe even within the United States or Canada, for example. Can they work with you, or would you?
Absolutely. No, I've been doing video chats for quite some time now, telemedicine. So I am on the phone a lot with patients. And since COVID hit, I transitioned 100% in my practice, video chat. And a couple of days a week, I still go do more of the physical medicine part of the practice where I am working with patients hands-on. But most of it, 100% of it now is just all video chat, which I love because I can work with anyone around the world, which I do have clients and patients from everywhere. So that's the beauty of it. And I love it because now your choice of doctors is just not limited to your area. It doesn't matter where you live.
So I definitely want to touch on that again, because I think that is so important. I'm going to put your website up again. That way people can get a hold of you in particular, because you sold me. And what I'm curious about too with the thyroid in particular, can you fix a lot of those issues with food?
Yes, you can. You can with food and lifestyle. The people that we have challenges with are, like, if someone has had a thyroidectomy, meaning their thyroid has removed, they have to go on hormone replacement, and they have to get the combination of a T4 and T3. I refer out for that they work with another doctor, just make sure that they're dosing them right. But most doctors don't even know how to dose them. So I just kind of guide them and say, all right, you want to make sure that you're taking a combination of the T4 and the T3, just not the T4 hormone, because the T4 is not active. It has to get converted in the body, in your gut, and in your liver. And if you don't have a healthy gut and a healthy liver, if you have all this stress in your life, it doesn't matter. It's almost like, Julianne, I'm giving you $1,000 every day. And you're like, oh, right, great. I'm going to save, $5,000 by the end of the week. But every day you're spending that $1,000, and so you don't have anything left. So with a lot of patients, it's just like, we have to figure out, what is the root cause, and go after that. And, and some, yes, a lot of them you can work with just diet alone, diet and lifestyle. But some of them, because of how, just the kind of situation they're in, they will have to go on some sort of thyroid medication. It's usually a combination, and a lot of them just don't want to. And I'm like, okay, so this might take a little bit longer. So I give them choices. You know, if you want to get to normal as fast as possible, then you might want to consider that. However, I sometimes think it's best, let's work naturally first, and then, you know, if things haven't shifted within a certain amount of time, then maybe you as a person needs to be on thyroid hormone, but on the right one that works for you.
Yeah, and this is fascinating, but I also used to work in pharmacy, so a compounding pharmacy. So I used to do hormones, like make the creams, all the individual creams and things like that, and the pills and all of that. And it was fascinating. And here's the thing too that people should be aware of is that people make mistakes when they're making that stuff too. So you got to be really careful and listen to your body, no matter what, listen to your body, because a doctor can give you a medicine, but you don't feel well. That's something you should pay attention to.
100%. I'm so glad that you said that, Julianne, because even just your labs, you know, doctors just so many times they treat you based on what your labs say. They're not treating you as a patient. And that's one of the things I always get with patients when they come in. They're like, my doctor thinks I'm crazy. They're like, but I know something's just not right. I just don't feel right. And I'm like, well, you live in your body 100% of the time, 24 hours a day. So if you intuitively, something you know is not right, keep pressing. Or maybe sometimes you just have to go outside of the, traditional medicine and say, you know what, this traditional medicine is failing me. I want answers and I'm not getting answers. So stop going to the same mechanic if he keeps diagnosing you with the same problem. It's like, maybe you need to go to someone else who specializes in your type of vehicle. So, you know, that's the beauty about functional medicine, using food as medicine. There is a lot of natural things. And if you think about this, what did our ancestors do? They used foods as medicine. They used herbs, right? And what if you, for one day, I had a friend, a colleague on a show that we did, and I asked her, what would you do if you could not use your prescription pad that day? Luckily, she had a lot of other modalities to use because she did use a lot of nutrition, she used medication, stress management, herbs, homeopathy, essential oils, grounding, going outside, exercise, which is the number one thing, because movement is the first thing that can shift your body and just from your mindset, but also physically, because you become expansive, you become like big, and you feel when you're like this, it's like no one's going to hold you down, but when you're like this, you're shrinking. You kind of cave in and give into everything.
Now, that's a really good point, too. And something you touched on a minute ago about, you know, you live in your body 100% of the time. It's like we're taught, at least in America, to trust that person outside of ourselves. And it's like, but you know when something's not right. So I love that idea of stop going back to the person that's telling you that you're crazy. You're not getting the help that you need. So why do you keep going back? We are almost out of time, but I would love for you to mention anything in particular that, like, points that you want to hit home, or if there's anything else that you want to mention.
You know what, if people, one thing I take away, I always tell them is, you know, invest in yourself. You know, and take care of your body. You've got to put you first, and especially talking to a lot of the moms out there. I take the first few hours of the day for me.
I love it.
That's first thing in the morning, meditation. I go work out, I go for walks, I do my journaling, I do my visualization, plan my day. So take the time for you and invest in you. Because without this working properly, you're not going to be able to function 100% in life. You just are not. And don't be afraid to go outside of the box, you know, and staying in just what your insurance is going to cover. Because it's your body, and you've got to learn to, one, honor the body, but two, you know it. And if you feel something is not right, you keep digging and digging and digging and digging. And we do free consults just so that I could see, is this a person I can help? Are we a good match to work with? And if not, I'll tell them right away. It's just like, you know what, I don't think we're good for you. I refer them and say, you need to go see this person. You know, I had someone, they message us and I'm like, yeah, they wanted to work with us in person and we're just really adamant. I'm like, you know, I don't think I'm the right person for you. And I referred them to someone else. And so that's one thing that we do is like, we have that 15-minute conversation. Maybe I'll direct them in a different path, or they think differently, or we find out, are we a good fit to help them reach their health goals? But it's also, you've got to get that mindset dialed in. That's the number one thing.
I love
that. Could be a different show, Julia.
Yep,
we can go on.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Dr. Linda. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you.
You know, and thank you for everything that you're doing. I just want to acknowledge what you're doing. It's just awesome. And so I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity here to be with you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah.